Alright guys, welcome back to the channel. This is the Wild Edge Berserker saddle. And I'm going to take some time today. We're going to break this saddle down. We're going to touch on the highlights. We're going to go over a few of the cons. And then we are going to wrap this review up and I'll give you my final thoughts. So before we throw this on the tree, let's just run down some of the specifications of this saddle. First off, this saddle is designed by Wild Edge, but it's manufactured by Kong USA. Now, Kong has a very reputable name in the climbing industry. They run by high European safety standards, and when I looked at this saddle at first, I was pretty impressed by the quality of the saddle, the sewing, the stitching, everything. You can tell that it carries over from their reputation in the mountaineering industry. And so again, it's designed by Wild Edge, manufactured by Kong USA. So the Berserker saddle comes in a small, medium, and large. You can get on their website and you can find the charts and the sizes there. I do want to say this, take it from my experience, if you find yourself on the upper end of a small or the upper end of a medium, always go to the next size up, and you'll be glad that you did. I actually got the medium originally, and you know, it was all right, but I work and I travel in ministry, and so I was actually in Connecticut and only 45 minutes from their shop. I asked them, hey, can I come down and just view your shop? They said, absolutely, come on down. And I tried out the large while I was there, and it was a completely different feel. And so just take it from my experience, if you're on the edge, always go to the next size up. They actually wrapped up this large, they gave it to me, and I just got to send my medium back, and so that was pretty sweet of them to do that. But again, always err on the side of the next size up, and you can find their sizing chart again on their website. The Berserker saddle is a single panel saddle, and it's kind of, I would say, like a hybrid in the material. I'll try to step aside so my black shirt doesn't interfere, but when you hold it up, you can see that the top portion right here, the top portion is a mesh, the middle is an elastic material, and then the bottom portion is mesh as well. Just by holding it up like this, you can kind of see that it has that contoured football shape or an oval. A lot of people look for that as it aids in the comfort when it wraps around your body. To illustrate that, I took a measuring tape, and essentially from the top piece of the elastic right here to the top of the saddle, that is 5 inches, and that's on the large. And then from the bottom of the elastic to the bottom of the saddle, again, is 5 inches. But then when you come over here to the edges, from the top piece of the elastic to the top of the saddle, it's only 2.5 inches, so 2.5 inches. So you can kind of see, if I was to hold that up, how it has that contour look that people look for. The top of the saddle, or from top on the large to the bottom, is 15 inches. And then when I expand it out all the way, it goes out to 18 inches. Now, it appears, and I'll just go ahead and I'll get the measuring tape here that we can see it firsthand. That pleat is 1.5 inches. Same with the bottom, and so again, 15 inches from top to bottom, and when it's completely expanded out, it goes out to 18 inches. As far as the bridge loops and also the lineman's loops, they're pretty standard across the board. Nothing really special, nothing not to not like about them. They're not quite as hard as the Cruiser XC that I had, but they're not as soft as, let's say, the Latitude Method, the last year's model, the 1. And so nothing to dislike about them, in my opinion. The lineman's loops, they're a constructed D-ring, and they're pretty robust. They're going to hold their shape. They're out on the front of the saddle, so they go out as far as possible, and easy to girth hitch or hook up a carabiner to it, and so that's what they look like there. All right, so let's talk about the bridge system. Now, this bridge system has caught a lot of people's eyes because it's unique. Right now, it's unique only to Wild Edge. It's a 3-component system. The first component, you have the bridge itself, and that's an 8mm sterling oplux. One thing I want to say is a plus about this bridge is when I measured from the top of this loop where it attaches to the bridge, the hip loops, excuse me, to the end, it was 50 inches long. And I like that because I'd rather have a company give me more than enough than not enough. And if it's too long, all you have to do is tie your double stopper knot and cut it off, and you're good. But again, I'd rather have more than enough than not enough. And so that's a 50-inch bridge from the top where it attaches to the hip loops to the end. That's the first component. The second component is right here. It's your 6.8 millimeter T-vac cord, and it's attached to the hip loops via this fisherman's knot, and then it's attached to your bridge via the prusik loop right here. And the third component is this guy. Hopefully you can see that. It's the poor man's ascender. And so basically what that allows you to do is make one-handed adjustments with ease on the saddle. You grab it, and if you want to shorten your bridge, you just pull on it. The poor man's ascender breaks the prusik, and you can adjust your bridge with ease. Now the downside, and I'm going to show you this when I'm in the tree, the downside to this bridge, and I say downside because it just eliminates an option, but at the same time, as I was hanging in the tree, I don't see a case in point where I'd utilize that option, and I'll explain that in a little bit. But basically, because this is an open loop, it's not what we see either comfort channels or prusik. If I wanted to adjust my bridge to put all the pressure on the bottom of my saddle, I can't just do that with this right here, because the prusik would grip this and it would hold the pressure. Whereas this one, it will slip up the bridge loops a little bit. And I'll show you that when I'm on the tree. But again, I have yet to find a place where I would use it all the way down at the bottom, because when I put it all the way down there, it just induced so much pressure, it was uncomfortable. So as far as the gear loops and the molly webbing goes, on the top here, this is kind of unique. On the top, you have two 3-inch gear loops right here. You have two 2-inch gear loops, and then you have on each side 3 molly webbing straps right here. On the bottom, you just have 6 2-inch gear loops. Now, at first I thought, well, maybe this is just a gimmick. It's something we really haven't seen. Is it really practical? Is there use for this? And the more I started playing with this, the more I liked having these gear loop options. Right here, the molly webbing, it still works if you want a dump pouch or anything like that. This is the Genesis 3D printing. It's their battlement hanger. So when I get to the tree, I'll take my battlement and I'll just hang it on there, and I can climb with it. So that's pretty slick. So you have those options. And I would carry a carabiner, and then when I go to climb down from the tree, I would hang it and try to wedge it through the tight loops here on other saddles. But it kind of makes it slick when I can just with ease put it on or take it off with these gear loops. I would attach my bow, I would climb down. So another area that I really like these, that kind of was, I found it by default back in March when I was really comparing this with other saddles. I found myself, when I wanted to adjust this bottom or even the top pleat, I would just reach down with that and I would pull, and I'd use the gear loops and pull it down. Made it super slick to do that. And actually, when I had the other saddles on, I'd reach down to adjust it and I'd look for those gear loops. And so by default, these things are pretty rad. I personally like them. Some may not, I don't know, but I like them. I think they're pretty slick. Now let me say one con, I guess if it's a con, about the molly webbing straps. These are not your typical size right here. This is actually, let me just grab my tape measure here. I think it's like 2 inches. It's 1 3/4 inches, okay? So it's not your regular size. I was messing around with a dump pouch from Custom Gear Modification. They sent it to me thinking that they were going to use the regular size molly webbing straps here, and I couldn't get it to fit through, and so they had sent me one with updated straps. So it's not a make it or break it deal for me, but just take note that these are not the same thickness as every other molly webbing that's out there on the market. So let's talk about the buckles. The buckles on the Berserker saddle. The waist belt, it's your typical Raptor style buckle. Push in the silver tabs, insert it if you want to be quiet. If you're at your truck, it doesn't matter, you just push it in. It only goes in one way. You can see the green right there. Connects like that. The same with the leg straps. That same style, silver tabs, just push it in. Very slick. Now, check out these leg straps. I haven't seen these ones on any other saddle, but they are nice and thin. And when you put the saddle on, it was designed so that they kind of land somewhere right here, which is nice. And when you go to adjust the leg straps though, basically all you have to do is pull up on this, and you can adjust it up or down like so, and then it will seat back in. So it's not as convenient as some of the other ones where you can just grab them and adjust them, some of the ones with like the G-hook, but once you get it adjusted, you're not going to be messing with it. So really not a make it or break it deal on that. As far as the leg straps, they're sewn in, and if with this single panel, along with every other single panel that has leg straps that I've used, if you're going to walk in with it, you're better off unbuckling your leg straps, not having them around your leg, and just kind of buckle them in to the back and let them hang a little bit. Otherwise, you get what I call the diaper booty. This thing crunches up in your backside. It's uncomfortable, so just take off your leg straps, let them, you know, hang once they're buckled in, and you should be fine. So one of the unique features about this saddle, it brings a lot to the market. You have your gear loops, which you don't see on many other saddles. I think there's one that started utilizing gear loops like the Berserker, but it has those gear loops. It has a unique bridge option. And then another thing that I like for a pleated seat design is generally every other pleated seat out there has used the same exact pleated design as Arrow Hunter, okay? It's the pleat right down the middle, and the fabric folds on the inside, and when it's closed, the mesh material comes together. It's what Arrow Hunter uses. A lot of people have followed that design. Where the Berserker is unique is that in the middle is that elastic piece of material, and the pleats are actually on the top and the bottom of that elastic, and you can see that right here. And what I like about that design, at first I was like, when you pull this out, your pleats out, I was like, on the inside, that ridge right there, that might be uncomfortable. And so I was just kind of, as I am with all my gear, just trying to be skeptical and proactive and critical of it and make sure it's something that I want. But when I put it on, I did not notice that ridge at all. You don't notice it. But the one thing that this does is it makes adjusting the bottom or the top very, very easy. But when you see other reviews, or I had a pleated seat design myself, I was just holding it and the pleat was opening, okay? And so you see this on Facebook, on the forums, you know, man, my pleats on my saddle just keep falling open. You know, try to loosen your legs while you're walking, but regardless of what they try to do, the pleat opens. Well, this design basically eliminates that. I can run in this saddle and I could jump, whatever, the pleat is not going to open. So I mean, you can shake the fire out of this thing, you can run with it, you could jump with it. If I was to do that with any other pleated seat design, it would have fallen open with the first shake. All right, guys, so I got the saddle on. Again, this is a large, and you can see how it fits me. I'm about 206 or 7 pounds right now, and I'm 5'10", so you can see it comes down quite a bit. I got the leg straps on. If I was to walk, I would just unbuckle and put them on. But that's how it fits me. Now, I'm sized for the top end of the medium. The one thing that I did lose was on the medium, I could cinch the bridge all the way down into transport mode, and it would be a little bit more tighter than what it is now. It's not going anywhere. I doubt it's going to be flopping, so it's really not a big deal for me. But that was just something to take note on. But I'm going to hook up to the tree, and I'm going to talk about some of the features. I'll show you the bridge in action, and then we'll reiterate some of the pros, the cons, and we'll call it a day after that. All right, guys, so I'm hooked up here, and I want to point out a couple of things and give you my overall feel. I have found the same thing to be true with the Berserker saddle as I did the Cruiser XC. I have the pleated design option, but really in the leaning position, it's more comfortable when it's all closed up for me. I know guys that run it wide open. I don't. It's not comfortable. It puts more pressure in my back, definitely down here in the lower legs. I have found that closed up, it's the most comfortable for me in the leaning position. And I've messed with my tether height here or there, and I still find the same to be true. If I was to go down into the sitting position, it is comfortable to pull down that bottom half, and I could do that. That's comfortable, okay? But I'm really not a sitter. I lean most of the time. Maybe I'll change that up. I don't know. But leaning. And so here's what I was talking about with the bridge loops and how the bridge attaches to it. Basically, because this is not a prusik, try to turn that, it's going to sit wherever the pressure lets it sit. So I can adjust this bridge to a degree. For example, if I want to put this down, I'll just pull on my hip loop and I'll roll it over, and you can see I have probably 1.5 inches here at the bottom. All right, but I can't put it all the way at the bottom and let it there, or it's gonna come up. But at the same time, as it sits right here about 1.5 inches from the top, I couldn't imagine a time or a scenario where I would want that much pressure pulling on the bottom. It sits in the middle well, but if I want it to go to the top, basically, I don't want to go that high, but hey, I guess you could do that. If I want to go to the top, I'll just grab it, and again, it will hold that top position with about 1 inch left. And again, for me, on this particular saddle, I can't see a time where that would come in handy. Even sitting, it's still a lot of pressure on this top strap. So for me, I found right in that middle, maybe a little bit above the middle. That's where it rests the best for me. But that's the beauty about these saddles, is they're so adjustable. You just have to get into the tree. You'd have to spend time in it, play around with it, adjust the bridge, adjust the tether height, the hip loops, all that stuff, and kind of figure out what works best for you. All right, guys, so let's talk about adjusting the bridge on the Berserker saddle. Mainly how long it is via this poor man's ascender. So the same is true with the medium that I had, and now this large. Also, I had a couple guys reach out to me and ask me about it, and they experienced the same thing. That from the factory, the poor man's ascender, it was tied close to the same distance as this T-vac loop was. And so what happened was, depending on how far back you were, whether you're sitting or leaning, when you went to make one-handed adjustments, the poor man's ascender, it wouldn't break the bottom of the prusik in time to actually make it easy with one hand. So you would struggle, you would put a lot of beef into it to try to get it up. But what I have found on my medium and now this large is I simply took and I tied it. You probably won't be able to see it from here, but I basically took the poor man's ascender and I tied another knot in it like I would tie a balloon, and I shortened this down. And now with that shorter, when you go to pull on the tail end here, your poor man's ascender, it will actually come to the bottom of your prusik 2 or 3 inches prior to when you're actually moving that prusik. So it breaks the bite very, very nicely when you do that. So I just put simply 2 fingers up here in my carabiner, and I'll just lean forward, and with one hand I'll adjust it. If I want to drop myself back down, I'll hang on here, I'll grab the top with my fingers, and I'll just let out as much as I want. If I want to go back up, I'll get the tail end, I'll grab my carabiner, I'll kind of just lean forward, with one hand adjust it. And so that's pretty slick. I really, really like how they utilize the poor man's ascender. And again, with all prusik knots, you just make sure that if you're really having problems even after you change it, make sure that it's dressed right. Sometimes it gets a kink in it, but once you shorten that rope, you should have no problems kind of putting the weight on your arm and breaking that bite of the prusik. So I like it. All right, guys, there you have it, the Wild Edge Berserker saddle. There's a lot to like about this saddle. It brings several unique things to the market, which is unique to Wild Edge. Originally, the gear loops, these big gear loops, which I actually found myself liking quite a bit. That's a big plus, especially for adjusting up and down. I really like the gear loops. They're the first saddle company to bring kind of a hybrid pleated seat design. Every other one out there is just single mesh. This one has that solid construction material, the elastic in the middle, mesh on the top and the bottom. And again, the features, the bonus of that is it does not open even when you try to shake it open. And so that's good. Also, the bridge, the first one to utilize a poor man's ascender. You can do one-hand bridge adjustments with ease. And so that's a pretty slick thing. I'm sure that people are going to try to figure out how to do that even with your AM steel bridges, but I really like that. Now, I'm a huge double panel saddle. I like it. There's something about them that fits me very well. But out of all the other single panels that I have used and I've tried out, I would stack this Berserker right up there with the best of them. Lots of options to love. The few cons, like I mentioned, about the bridge adjustments, not being able to cinch them down. I'll be honest with you, I reached out to Wild Edge and I said, you know, I talked to them about that, and they said, hey, we're going to look into possibly having a secondary bridge option for those that would want that, but there are a lot of people that are liking this bridge as it is, and so that's something that you could consider. But overall, I think it's a hit that's going to be out there and compete with the other single panel saddles out there. If you have any questions, if there's something that I did not touch on, please leave it in the comments below. Let me know. Private message me on Instagram under Platinum Pursuit Outdoors. Whatever, I'll do everything I can to answer the questions. I appreciate you watching. If you haven't already, go up and hit that subscribe button. That helps me out. And looking forward to bringing you another review shortly.